Hello.
Hi.
Hey. Hey everyone. Hey Joyce.
Hi. How is everyone today?
Well, I am good. How are you?
How do I show my chat, Arlemy?
How do you
This
show?
happens every time.
Do you want to show
Twitch,
your chat to people or do you want to show it
no, I
to?
want to see chat. Like I want to
Uh,
say something in the chat and Twitch changed their UI, so now I can't find it.
if you go to our page, I think you can click chat at the.
Oh, it's a whole new tab there.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna say hi to everyone. Hi everyone. Hi and welcome to Office Hours. Arlemy, you had a session earlier this morning with Raj, right? How'd that
Yeah.
go?
Office hour number two for me. It went well. We didn't have a lot of questions, so that's how we concluded the thing. It's like there was not a lot of questions, therefore people already know how to use Postman. Or
Okay.
whenever they have a question, they don't need us to help them.
You had expert users. So,
So,
this is office hours is something that we have about once a month, I want to say, and this is the first day, like time that we've had it in two different time to accommodate like different time zones. So, I am Joyce. I'm a developer advocate at Postman. Arlemy.
and Alimi, I'm a developer advocate at Postman, surprisingly.
So the one that we had but early this morning, you had done it because you're in London. Um, and so you did it with Raj, who is in product support, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I cheated a bit again and took someone from product support. So any question that come to our way, because that's what they do, right? They take any question that comes in and they somehow answer any question as well. So yeah, Rush was very helpful for that.
So you're lucky. You have like a professional question answerer on the first office hours. And this time you just have me and Arlemy, and we are developer advocates and we know a lot of stuff, but maybe not some of the edge cases. So we're just going to start office hours right off the bat. If anybody has any questions, if you want to see a demo on a specific topic, if you're stuck on something, go ahead and put it in the chat there on the side. You have to be logged in to be able to comment and stuff like that. I have something I want to show in the meantime, but please go ahead and ask your questions. It's going to be first asked, first answered, right? Unless I see something really intriguing, in which case I'll just skip straight to that one. Sound good, Arlemy?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So please ask your questions in the chat. Otherwise, me and Arlemy are going to hang out. I have some snacks here, some coffee. We're just going to
Yeah,
chill.
I need to grab some snacks as well. Okay.
Oh no.
uh,
Um,
should I
do we
share your screen?
not yet.
Okay.
I want to show our special guest. Arlemy, do you know what this is?
It's a Hue light.
Yeah, so this is a Hue light, and normally we stream on Thursdays. And the last time we were able to stream together, we unboxed this Hue light, and I was able to play around with it on my local network because I'm connected to the same Wi-Fi that this device is. Um, but I want to tell you that we've set it up so that anybody can turn on the light in my kitchen. So I'm going to put it down here. You won't be able to see it immediately, but hopefully you'll see it illuminate if you're able to get it done correctly. So I wasn't able, this wasn't working this morning. Arlemy, you tried to help me. I'm going to give you three guesses. Do you know what the issue was? This was not working this morning.
I had already asked you whether it was plugged or it was out of battery. So it's not that.
No,
Uh,
that's
uh,
what it was.
oh, it
So
is what it was.
I
No.
checked the plug going into the wall and that was fine, but this little thing, it's got a loose bottom, the power hole, this thing was just like it fell out. So it was out of batteries, you're right. It works now. And
Okay.
yeah, go ahead and share my screen. I'll show everyone
Yeah.
how you can turn the light on in my kitchen. And remember, if you have questions that are unrelated to this light, go ahead and plop it in the chat and we'll get to it right after we play with this light because this is going to be fun. Okay, so hopefully, Arlemy, you're sharing my screen and
Yeah.
we see Postman. I think I just did this yesterday. So if you go to, and Arlemy, you should follow along too, because otherwise no one else is going to be turning on my light but me. Oh, follow along at home. If you have Postman open, go ahead and follow along because this is production ready. It's live now. So I'm going to hit new um, button in the top left. And if I go to templates, I forgot what I called it, but I'm going to go ahead and type in Hue. Hue for Twitch. This is the code samples from our last time that we were unboxing. Turn on the hue light in Joyce's kitchen. So I just published it. It has 0 imports. I'm going to go ahead and put run in Postman. And you can see that I've imported both a collection and an environment. So go ahead and update your drop-down selector to hue proxy. And now you see localhost, which if you send it now, you have nothing running on localhost 3001, hopefully, and you'll get nothing. But this is my production URL. So expand the collection. We have 6 requests working locally. Don't worry about that. Go ahead and expand working in production and load up Hello World if you're curious. And all we've done is variabilize the production URL. And if you hit send, you see Hello World, but you still see nothing has changed with my light, right? So, oh gosh, what if this doesn't work? I should have tested this. Arlemy, are you following along at home?
Well, I'm following what you're doing, but I just realized you probably expect me to do it at the same time. So I'm currently opening Postman. And yeah, I got up.
So if you're at home and you want to turn on my kitchen, go ahead and import this collection called Turn on the Hue Light in Joyce's Kitchen. Or if you're cool with curl, just go ahead and send a curl request. Send a curl request to this endpoint. It's light.meowsergirl.com. Or as Arlemy would say, how do you pronounce that, Arlemy?
The meowser?
Meow. A cat goes meow, meow.
Wait, turn on the lights.
Okay, if this doesn't work, this is going to be a lot of build up for nothing.
Kitchen. Is that going to be found in the templates? Nah. We need less words.
I can send you a link directly to it if you want.
I have it. I just typed in Joyce's kitchen. And
here, I just switched over to... Wait, don't hit it yet.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to go to it. Oh, are you... Wait, don't hit it yet.
I'm on it. I'm ready to hit it, but I'm not. So, is the just question, because your local host is on port 3001. Is it the default one for like the U lights, or is it one that you set up?
No, it's one I set up because I had something running on 3000. So I did 3001.
So anyone, even if they had a local U light, that probably wouldn't work with that endpoint either.
Actually, that's a good point. So I'm going to drop a link to this template in the chat. So if any... Oh, was that you, Arlemy? You're supposed to wait.
That wasn't me.
Okay, good. Somebody has gotten it to work somewhere. Is that very bright? Can you see what color it is? So if you're in the template already, go ahead and fiddle with it. I'll hold this up here and type with one hand. But the 3001 localhost, and in fact, this production is not hitting my light directly because that's not safe. I don't want to invite the world to hit my light directly, because if there's any vulnerabilities with the hue, which, IoT devices, they're notoriously not insecure, but not super secure. So I'm actually proxying this request through. Thank you. That was Nero's God. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and show you what Arlemy sees. I'm not going to push send because I can do it on my local network and I could do it in production. But Arlemy, if you want to either toggle on and off, so to toggle on or off, you can see the body is just a JSON object with on property set to false Boolean. Or you can update the light color very, very similar on true. And then here's saturation, brightness, and hue.
Let me try that. So I'm going to go with saturation 0, brightness...
I'm losing circulation in my hand.
54. And hue is going to be like 100.
So it'll be dim and 400 hue.
Let's see.
Ooh, do you see that?
Did it do so? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Can you see it? It's bright in here, but it's a slight red.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a very bright red, because that's what I tried to send this morning, and I kind of tried to like remember the values. But obviously this morning it didn't work because it was not plugged.
So Nero's God, Arlemy, as we're going through questions, which if you have questions for office hours, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we finish with this light thing. Whoever wants to Was that you, Arlemy?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was probably you turn the brightness up higher?
Yeah. Kind of. I think is the brightness from 0 to 256, or is it like
It's 255.
it's probably on 256, and therefore it's like from 0 to 255. I tried to put it at 254, and it seems pretty bright.
It's very bright right now. It's
Let me
singeing my eyeballs.
let me try to go over in like 500, see if it complains. Yeah, I think it didn't change anything, right?
I mean, would I be able to tell a one increment of brightness?
I went from 254 to 500.
Oh, to 500.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. It's max 250. Like, it's right around there. I can't remember the
Okay,
exact number. It's
255.
whatever light. It's the
Yeah.
standard light. Spousey, change my light. Okay, so hue, we got stuck on this last time, but Philips Hue values are actually a different, like, I don't even know. It's like a calculation. Somebody should build an API to like convert. Oh, somebody likes purple. Purple.
I found a website for that actually this morning when I was trying. Um, that generates all type of values for like either saturation, brightness, and hue, or like RGB, and just like converts to from one to the other, which was pretty good. I don't know if I can find it.
Okay, so if anybody has questions for office hours, otherwise I have my snacks and my coffee. We're just gonna ASMR it up. Although we could also answer questions. We did that, but it's so boring. Do you want us to just answer random questions? So if you don't have specific questions, if you're not stuck on anything and you're just kind of curious about some stuff, you can always there are things that we haven't talked about before. Okay, so I have snacks because it's right before lunch hour here in San Francisco. And I'm,
It's right before dinner hour here, but I was like, I'm not gonna eat on stream.
is that rude?
That's just the only thing that I could have is like pistachios, and you have to break them open.
Oh,
It's
I
just a,
love pistachios.
yeah,
Oh,
it's so good, but I don't want
you're
to.
among friends here. I don't think, unless it's rude, is it rude like in other cultures to eat during, or does
Uh,
it sound gross? Some people get grossed out by that.
I don't mind. So yeah, apparently, spouse
I am
to
in the kitchen.
wants you to eat on stream. So,
The other thing
um,
is I get confused between mute and unmute, which is why sometimes I blow my nose for you guys. Like I unmute to blow my nose. Okay. So, Arlemy, what do you want to do? Do you want me to demo some things that we've never demoed before on live stream? Do you want me to answer questions on the community forum?
so one quick demo that I did office hours this morning. So I'm guessing we're not gonna have the same people now, just because like time zones.
That would be hardcore if people went to both office hours.
Can you imagine someone going to both office hours?
Besides you? No.
Yeah. No, one thing that I just demoed was how do you start from just an open API schema, and in a few clicks you go all the way to the documentation, because that's something that is very easy to do, but we
It's
don't
super easy. Yeah.
but we
So
don't
I'm
show
curious,
enough.
how many people on the chat use Open API or use an API specification format? Um, I think one reason why we haven't chosen that as a specific topic is because it's typically like very large companies, if you're using APIs very heavily versus just kind of putzing around. Um,
But we will get
I'll,
we have a stream plan for that beginning of August, I think, where we will do
oh,
open API spec, and
Lorna Jane?
yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So we will do some of this on the Thursday stream, not on the office hours, and we will go like dive deeper into what you can do with that. But yeah, you can probably show it.
Okay. We got a chatty Cathy here. Spousey says, I am new to Postman. Where as an app dev do I go to learn all the things Postman can do for me and use Open API schema? Or is that a pipe? Or use Open API schema?
I think it's I.
Oh, I use. Okay. Sometimes I get I's and J's mixed up too on this Dell monitor
um,
here.
where do you go to learn all things? Here, and you just ask us anything and we answer. That's one. The other one is probably we So we have a Postman one-on-one webinar that we do every month, and what we recommend on this one to get started is first the bootcamp. I don't know if maybe. Oh yeah, actually, good
You're
point.
saying lots of things. Let me show
Yeah,
it to people. So this is only the past webinars, not the ones coming up. That's not helpful.
but it's here. Yeah, you can watch the previous one
Oh, the
here.
previous recordings.
Yeah,
So Postman webinar 101, that's very huge. I think we had 24,000 people register for that last one. Arlemy, you did that.
yeah,
Um, and then it's just like thousands and thousands of people. Arlemy covers like the basics. Totally cool. And I think I heard you say boot camp.
yeah,
So if I go back to, you mean the in-app boot camp,
yeah, yeah,
Arlemy?
yeah.
Okay, so if I go back to Postman and if I have this closed, let me move your head, Arlemy. You can go to boot camp here. There's also Launchpad. I don't really know the difference, but like Bootcamp shows a couple modules. So if you're really interactive and you like having Postman kind of there to putz around in, it's very interactive and you can walk through these different lessons. You can see that I haven't completed all my lessons. I've only 7% complete, but design an API, is that where the open API thing would be?
No, that's credit
Oh,
collection. We don't have, so we have one for APIs, but you have to go to the API tab.
okay. So normally we're doing work on the collections tab,
Yeah,
but over here on the APIs tab,
and you have, yeah,
move your head,
that's the one.
move your head over here. Arlemy. This one.
Yeah,
So this is an in-app tutorial that shows you how to work with API specifications then,
yeah.
right? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we will use Open API Schema. We'll show a demo of that. Um, Arlemy, do you have
November
a
Sailor.
example Open API specification?
No, I just asked Raj what he wanted to see, and we just picked a random one on the internet. So we use one from the Watson IBM Watson APIs because I know they are available out there.
Okay, can you send me a link?
Yeah,
Or should I Google it?
you can Google IBM Watson API reference. Yeah, for example,
Huh?
the first one. The first one.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on the left, next to the Watson Assistant V2, there's like the three dots menu, and you can get the OpenAPI definition from there. So in chat, we have November Sailor saying, we are working on the developer API for our product. Any good getting started guides on how to use Postman in the process? I know noob question. There's no noob questions. And we have been using Postman to test other APIs, looking to understand how to best use it as an API
Ooh.
provider.
Documentation, onboarding. I love that question.
So, do you want to take it?
I do. Do we want to just jump around between
Yeah.
Open API and documentation?
Yeah, let's do the documentation one. I think that's interesting.
Are we just ditching this spousies question?
Oh, was that? Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was a question. Okay, let's finish this one because that's also very fast, and
Okay.
it touches on documentation as well. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yes, it does. Okay. So I'm going to go back to, so we're going to actually cover two flows. This is a wider API lifecycle, if you will. So November Sailor, if you're using Postman as an exploration or I bet you're really not testing, but that's okay. Most people use the word test and say they're testing APIs. We're going to show we call it API lifecycle. So a design, mock, debugging, testing, publishing flow. So I'm going to go back to Postman. Not testing, true exploration. Yeah, most people are. So I'm here on the APIs tab. I'm going to create an API and I'm going to create this. What is the IBM Watson? Should I just call it Watson?
yeah,
I don't remember what version. Was it version 2?
V2, yeah.
Okay. So I didn't even look to see what specification format it was. Is it Open API?
It's
The
OpenAPI, and I think
probably
it is 3.0.
it is 3.0.
Yeah,
Okay. Ooh,
you can check.
IBM ahead of the curve.
You can change that later on anyway.
Okay.
Once you have created your API.
All I'm doing is telling Postman, here's the general specification format, and I didn't even check. Is it YAML or JSON?
Yeah, it
Oh,
just create by
it
default,
just
and
won't
then we
syntax
change it
highlight it
later.
that well.
Yeah,
And I'm going to go ahead and import an API schema. It's called assistant, right?
yeah.
Okay. Gonna pull that in and hit create API. Close. And now we have this API listed in the sidebar under the APIs tab. And so under this specification, we have an overview that tells us some pre-populated information that we actually pre-populated. And these sections, these tabs, this is what I meant by the API lifecycle. So this is how you define, and it looks like it's JSON, and I said it was YAML. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that over, this format here, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. So all I'm doing is importing this specification file from IBM Watson, because maybe I work at IBM Watson, and I have it living in Postman now. What do you normally do next? Do you connect I can't connect GitHub. That's too just
Generate documentation from here.
Okay, so if I wanted to keep this connected with my source control, you can go ahead and connect it with GitHub, for example. And that way, if somebody changes something in the GitHub repo or somebody changes something in Postman, it has like a two-way sync. And from there, I can update that specification if I want. But here's all the other stuff I could do with that specification file. Hey, Freppard. Hi, nice to see you. So you have the develop and the test. And these are just the more the things that I think are more familiar to Postman users besides the API specification. So if I wanted to create documentation, November Sailor, I think you asked about that. If you're using an open API spec, this is how you would generate documentation. But if you're not, we'll show you that flow too. So I'm going to go ahead and create new documentation. And this is going to be the Watson API reference or whatever you want to call it. Create documentation. Okay, so you have this living. Does it populate in this workspace?
Yep.
Okay, so previously we only had 2 collections, and now we have a 4 request collection. And this organization is determined by that specification. And now when I load up, here's that information about it's basically turning the specification into a Postman collection. So I'm going to go back over to APIs because I skipped over a lot of stuff there. There's validation, being able to make sure that what you're doing in Postman syncs correctly or fits the mold that you've defined here on the Define tab. There's writing tests. There's building monitors for that. And so this is all empty right now, but you can see that if this is my single source of truth, this specification, then I can generate a bunch of different entities from that specification. Is there anything else you like to show related to OpenAPI, Arlemy?
No, not related to OpenAPI. I was going to talk about like jumping into documentation straight from the collection, like the develop tab, and you can click and open the documentation.
Here?
Yeah.
You can see that link sent me through to the web. This is a private view of that documentation. You can see I'm logged in here. This is my dog avatar. And here's those 4 requests. Here's all that metadata, the URL, the method, annotations if you have them in your OAS spec, example requests and responses. I was just looking for a quick value prop doc. Well, hopefully you got the long story.
Yeah. But hopefully the fact that you can generate this kind of stuff straight from an OpenAPI spec, especially if you do not use Postman at the moment, and you're an app developer that's for now is only working from OpenAPI spec file, the fact that you can just import the OpenAPI spec or design it directly in Postman and allows you to generate this. So again, all that you're seeing here on Joyce's screen, so all the documentation, is just pulled from the OpenAPI spec. So on the right, you can see code samples as well, which is pretty useful. You can change the language for the code samples. And so you could generate monitors to run tests every once in a while, just integration tests, test suites. And I see there's a question about exporting that doc to host somewhere. Not at the moment. You can get your own domain name, I think.
Yeah, you can have a custom domain. So this is the private view, but if I wanted to publish it, you can go ahead and publish it publicly. That's how we got the template from earlier about turning on the lights, except we published it to templates instead of API network.
So yeah,
Let's go talk.
Yeah, I was going to say, just if that was the question about can you host it somewhere, if you were asking whether you can host it, you don't even have to export it because you can already host it from here. And this is all in the free plan as well. Just want to make that like obvious. Anything that we are doing here, you can do it on your free account. So if you just want to check out Postman and give it a try, if you already have an OpenAPI spec file, import it, generate the documentation from here, and you'll be able to see that. If you're convinced or if you need to do more collaboration and stuff like that, you may need to upgrade. But by default, a lot of it is available on your account.
November Sailor has a good question. Can you make requests from this UI? So this is just the API documentation. I think we have something coming in a few weeks that allows you to a little bit more seamlessly navigate between, like right now, you're sending the requests in Postman, you're loading it up and you're like, okay, updating it. But we have something coming in a few weeks that will make that a little bit more seamless. But no, you're not currently executing requests from the documentation. Can we talk about documentation? Please keep asking your questions, especially if it's related to what we're talking about now. Freppard, you better have some good questions. I have high expectations for you. Okay, so documentation. We talked about generating documentation from, and we're actually showing private documentation right here. We talked about generating it from a specification, but I can't remember how well I documented this collection. It was a quick one. But say you're not working with a specification and you're just working in Postman. You have a collection. Maybe you're passing around a collection. You have a new developer coming. You pass the collection over to her, and she's like learning your APIs. If you want to add documentation internally or externally, this applies for both. You can add things like, I'm going to close some of these tabs. So here we're back in that hue light, and I'm going to update light color. If I'm like, oh, what is update light color? These English words don't make sense to me. You can go ahead and add descriptions here in Markdown. And this is little descriptions. You can add it at the request level, the folder level, the collection level. And this gets displayed in the documentation. So either right here in Markdown or in the web documentation. Oh, parameter level too. These take Markdown. And so the documentation, hey, was it November Sailor that asked the original documentation question? Yeah. So November Sailor, if you have an internal API that you want to document, you can, should we talk about the API network?
Yeah, we can talk about the API network.
So if you have a public API, say you are Hugh, say you're Phillips Hugh, and you want to let other people know about it. You're trying to market your API. Go back to this view in web, and now we're back in Chrome. We saw this earlier with the Watson example. So this is the private view, but if I wanted to publish it, I've already added all my descriptions. I've added my example requests and responses. I want to go ahead and publish it. I clicked publish in the top right, and now I can probably include an environment if I have like stubs for stuff. Here's where you can add a custom domain once you verify it. Meowser Girl Company has, this is our company logo. And here's our company colors that look suspiciously like Postman colors. Yep. And here's how you can make it accessible more broadly. So you can go ahead and publish your documentation and just, have it on your own domain. You can also distribute it for curation, right? So API network is for API publishers. If you have like Phillips Hue, Postman templates, this is where I published it so that you could pull it in to your instance of Postman and then just publish it.
Yeah, we did during the office hour this morning, we tried to do the weirdest combination of color for the Postman documentation. And we did like ocean blue on...
If people know hex colors, we can update this documentation and make it public.
Let me check. So another question was, can you auto-generate random payloads to test and search?
Yeah, you can. Dynamic variables. Do you remember the syntax for that, Arlemy?
Yeah, actually, since you're already on that window,
Oh yeah.
November Sailor is asking if you can go over the two
Oh
different
yeah.
options. So what's the difference between API network and template?
Yeah. So API network, in fact, let's look at it from there's words here that tell you the difference, but if you look at it from the consumer perspective, this is available on the in the web as well as in Postman. So at the very start of the stream, we looked at one, but if I'm working around in Postman and I'm like, oh, I'm working on an IoT thing, but I need some smart light or something like that, right? You can go to the new button, and then templates are typically APIs or workflows that are contributed by the Postman community. So since I'm not Philips Hue, I just use their API to make something. I publish it under templates. So you can think of this as like community contributions. API network is going to be like real companies, like real teams, real organizations that have like API reference. So you can see like I like to click on Okta because they've done a really good job with their documentation. They have 15 collections for different products. And if I'm like authentication, let's go view that documentation. Now I'm kind of like a consumer, right? I was looking for something related to IoT, but I ended up finding an auth API. But that's the primary difference. One is like company sponsored, if you will. It's free, but it's like they're verified companies. And then templates are community contributed. Is there a cost to get on the API network? No, that is free. Yeah, it's free. It's free. All it costs is your time to check this radio button.
And to click publish collection, yeah.
Yeah, November Sailor, if you do a good job with the documentation, just let us know. And then this is how we verify some of this stuff, but we bubble stuff up to the top. So I already showed you the in app, but if you go to explore.postman.com, you have this same, it looks exactly the same, but see like PayPal, like we've talked to the PayPal people. We've said, here's how you can improve your documentation, make it a little bit more easy to onboard people. And then we slap a little featured label on there. And then we also have the private API network. So we were talking about the public API network, but if you have APIs, like those API specifications that Spousey was asking about, here I am already logged into this team. And if I go here to this private, so you can tell by the icon, there's a lock there with the world. I don't know what the names of these icons are, but this is the private API network. So in the private team view, again, I'm logged in. It's private under lock and key. You can see I have I have Uber and Spotify just because that's what we were using for examples. Um, yeah. What other questions, Arlemy? Any new
We
ones?
need to roll back to dynamic
Oh,
variables.
variables.
Yeah.
Oh, to generate a random payload?
Yeah.
We are going to get stuck on that again. Let's do it. Yes. What
Yeah.
was the actual question?
So the question was, can you auto-generate random payloads to test and such?
Okay. So
But
if I
I
come,
think we have Shamashish on stream, and he can help us if we're struggling.
Shamashish is here?
Yeah, he's watching.
Oh my gosh, everyone, our VP of engineering is here lurking. What's his username? Are we doxing him if we tell?
I think he's really just watching.
Okay, no pressure. No pressure. Let's get this dynamic payloads correct. Okay, so we've talked about this on several live streams before, but say I have this request and I'm tinkering with the parameters, but I want to send, okay, let's actually
Yeah, we
do
could actually
this.
do a random color.
Okay, so let's go to update light color API. And what we want to do is, what we've been doing is updating the body. Oh, Shamashish is really into IoT. Shamashish, update my light if you can. Okay, so we've been like, okay, like let's copy and paste something from documentation. Let's update the colors because we know something. But was it Spousey asking this?
Yeah.
Spousey was asking, can you generate a dynamic payload, right? Can we dynamically generate or mutate an existing body? And we've talked about, oh, why does this look so weird? I squinched it up. Okay, so I'll make my window a little bit bigger. You have these two tabs here, the pre-request script and the tests tab. And this is where you can write code that executes before or after this main request that we're sending, right? So if we're going to generate something dynamically, we can either do it in the test tab of the previous request that runs, or we can do it in the pre-request script. So before this main request is sent, we're going to generate random payload for the body, okay? So how would we do that, Arlemy?
Um, should we start with the documentation?
Okay, to the documentation. So I'm going to go to the Postman docs. So it's interesting. I don't know exactly what our search results typically. I know what to search for. Okay, so it's dynamic variables is what we looked at least at the last live stream. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can either generate something random using, what's the underlying library here? Is it Faker?
Yeah,
Faker.
Faker.js.
So Faker is a library that Postman Sandbox gives you access to, so you can generate random stuff using this syntax.
So I don't think you even need to use the pre-request script.
So
if you're going
to do something like PM send request to API that gets color or something like that, you can actually do that here. Otherwise, in the body, if we're using Faker, you can use this syntax.
I think there's
How do we do a color though?
Well, you don't want a color, right? You want random int, like integer. And I think there's one
but it has to be between a certain amount, right?
Yeah. I don't think you can parameterize that, but like, so yeah, there's a random int which is going to be between 1 and 1,000.
That'll work for our hue.
And that would,
okay.
For the other ones, if it's lower than 255, then it would change, and if it's higher than 255, it's just going to max out.
Out, okay.
Yeah, that works too.
So for the hue, I believe this goes up to like at least 50,000. And the random int that we're generating is going to be between 1 and 1,000. So whatever the colors that is, you want to try it?
Yeah.
Okay. How do we do it? Is it with the curly
brackets? Curly brackets.
Double or single?
Double.
Double.
And you should highlight, yeah.
Oh, okay. So all we're doing is using double curly braces to string substitute in the body area.
You should use it for the saturation and brightness as well, just to make sure that we're like maximizing on the randomness.
And this is gonna. Are you sure that it won't error from a high?
Well, we'll find out. Because I tried it already.
Okay. So we're sending random stuff, right? Let me make sure I don't have. Whoops. All we're doing is generating random ints directly in the body. Actually, can you do? I'll do it. Okay, well, this is something. Oh, so everything's going to be on this spectrum because it's between 0 and 1,000, right? Like how?
Well, you said it's.
Oh, it's kind of pinkish. Can you see that?
Yeah, it looks white on the stream. But you said it's between 0 and 10,000?
What?
The
hue?
Yeah, hue.
60,000.
60,000. So why don't you multiply the random int by 60?
Because we can't do JavaScript in this area, but we can do it here.
Can't you? But that's a value, right? You can.
You can't write JavaScript in the body area, but we could do it in pre-request script.
Yep.
If we don't have questions, let's just play with this.
So we have one. We have one.
Oh, damn. Okay. I don't like this color. Please change it to something else. It's like a peach. It's like a watered down watermelon.
Let's see if I still have mine open somewhere. How about this?
Oh, that's scary. That's like the dim eye of Sauron. Can you see that?
Yep. It's because the brightness is super low. What about...
All right, these people came here to ask questions. Let's get to it. Let's stop playing.
Sorry. So Frepart actually has a question. He says, in my team, we have just some requests in the collection, but we don't have a specification. Is it possible to create the specification after the creation of the request of API? I think that the best practice is start with the specification.
Yes. If you're using a specification, the best practice is to use that specification to drive the development of your API. However, a lot of people do use specifications to document their API after it's already been after it's live. So so it's a recommendation versus what people actually do. Oh, is API Evangelist on here? He would have opinions.
To your other question, whether you can use the collection to create the Open API, that's something that we've had as a request, and we're trying to see. We're just exploring it. We'll see if that's feasible. But ideally, generating an Open API spec from a collection would be nice, because we have a lot of people that use collection nowadays, and Open API specification are just starting to becoming like mainstream, let's say, and we're not even there. So yeah, that's a request that we've had. So it's good to see that there's a need for it.
November Sailor, if you end up publishing, sorry, we're skipping questions now. I'm like finally getting caught up on the chat. November Sailor, if you publish awesome documentation, go ahead and let us know on this live stream or tweet us. Are our tweets on the screen? Yeah, go ahead and tweet us, get Postman,
And I think
and let us know. Something,
exclamation mark
November
Twitter.
Sailor, just because we were talking about documentation, something that we didn't talk about directly is I always recommend for people to save examples. And in the UI, it's very subtle, so you might not know it. But if you get something back from the server down here, and I'm looking down here in the response, this is like the most boring response. Okay. Ooh, somebody turned my light yellow. Thank you. It's like okay 200, but say it was like unauthorized access or something that you want to be reflected in the documentation, you can go ahead and hit, oops, Arlemy, your head just appeared. You can go ahead and hit save response and you save it as an example. And when you do that, so say you don't have a running server and you're like planning out your server, you can actually just add an example from scratch and simulate what that response would be. But I'm going to call this like good success, like whatever. Save example. And then I'll close that. And with this request, I've now paired in the top right an example, and I can edit it if I want. So I can add it. I can add it from scratch. I can save an existing response, or I can edit it. And that's what we saw in the documentation, those paired request and response examples. I'll show you again if we forget. Oh, beach ball. This new computer is really chapping my ass. Something's wrong with it. Chrome is like the heaviest thing right now on my activity monitor.
Oh,
What
are you gonna cut off?
else?
Yep, it's eating your RAM. You're cutting off.
This is a good example showing now. Linux. Okay, so was I showing? Oh, examples of good documentation.
Yep.
Okta is good because they've broken it out. They're like a huge company that has at least 10 APIs. So that's a really good example of like over different products. But if you just have like one public API, one that I show people to is Imager. Imager is a photo upload company, and I'm going to go ahead and hit view documentation. Can you? So slow. You can add screenshots. They've made ample use of this intro area for auth. They have examples like we talked about, and they've broken it down. So from like a Postman documentation feature perspective, they're pretty thorough, but also from like a user experience, developer experience, they've put a lot of thought into it. Like, look, like they included screenshots of how to use their dashboard to set permissions and stuff like that.
And for this kind of long, where there's a lot of text but not a lot of example on the right side, you can show the single column view.
Single column view. Bloop. Oh, clean.
Nice. Just like a blog post.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much text here at the front end there. Here, I'll plop this in. Let me get it without that. I don't know why that parameter's always there. Good docs.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other ones. We used to recommend a lot Ship Engine, which is on there, and I think on Thursday you're probably going to look at the box documentation, right? During your stream.
I don't know if we will. I assume so. But Box, let's find Box on here. Let's critique Box. If there's no more
Right,
questions, let's critique.
right before they come live, let's look at what they've done.
So Box is a file upload company, and here's their API, which opened on a separate window. I'll bring it down here.
Oh, that's a lot of folders.
They must have a very extensive API.
Yeah, if that's I was going to say if that's from one Open API specification file, that must be a hefty one. But I've seen we had a call with a customer a month ago, and they had I think 40,000 lines long Open API spec. It was automatically generated from different ones, but that was impressive.
40,000 lines.
Yeah.
Bye, Spousey. Bye, Spousey. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye bye.
More good docs. Wow, this has turned into a documentation office hours. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and plop them here in the chat.
Do we have a documentation webinar planned? Or is that something
We
we have in
have,
mind?
so we have a lot of webinars where we do talk about documentation. We have something coming up in, what month is it? Is it July? Yeah, July 4th was just happening. It's coming up in August, but it's not going to be just documentation. We are going to talk about one company's like kind of like a spotlight on it's actually ping identity. So we'll talk about documentation, but we'll also talk about some testing and some other things. Can somebody change my light? Somebody turned it this pea yellow color. Can you see that? There we go.
It is very
It's
dim.
very low brightness.
Yeah. Did I do that? No, I didn't do that. Let me check.
It's
So
like
you
the
said
color of Mountain Dew.
up to. Let's try this.
Were there any other? Whoa,
Oh,
that's a nice one. I like that. Can you
I
see
like that
that?
too. Yeah. Like we need to change the time of these streams so it's dark where you live, and then then it's just gonna be like imagine your whole room is in that light color. That would
Yeah,
be
it's too bright here for
yeah.
lights, but I think it adds ambiance.
Yeah, if you hold it up, maybe it's just I don't know. Is there
What if I have like two?
like a wall support that you can have it somewhere? Yeah.
Yeah, I plan to mount this so that during all live streams, people that know the secret template can submit post requests and update my light. All right, guys, what else do you want to talk about? We can go through community discourse answers. We can do demos. If anybody has any
Uh,
questions.
what could we demo? Well, there's
Oh, I have stuff we can demo. We could demo Newman. We could demo monitors. We can demo Trello roadmap board. Oh, somebody did ask about resources. Do we have more to say about resources?
resources to get started or resources in general.
I think it was to get started. Or was that Spousey that has Spousey left?
Yeah. Well, just in general, I think it's a good link to have. That's the one. Again, I talked about it in my one-on-one webinar. It's the one link to rule them all. It's postman.com/support. And from there, you actually have the links to the Learning Center, to GitHub, to support, to all of it.
What's the URL again?
Postman.com/support.
Is there a bot for that?
I, good question. Let me see. Maybe,
One link to rule them all. Wow,
yeah.
we're very Lord of the Rings heavy today.
But yeah, so from here, if you scroll down, it kind of goes like in a row. So it starts from if you have a question, you'll ask or you'll search in documentation. So that's the first link. And then if you don't find your
Documentation,
answer, you can move into the Postman community and ask like fellow
forum.
Postmanots or Postman users. And if you still don't find your answer, then uh, ask it or like feed, how do you say, request it as a feature request or just report it as a bug. And if not, if you still don't find your answer in any of these, you can scroll down again and there's a open a ticket button.
Down here.
Yeah,
One
and
link to
there,
rule them all.
yeah, you've got everything on that page. Like I was looking for all these links as well when doing the like prepping for the webinar, and I realized having this one instead of like a bunch of links was much more helpful.
Arlemy, we have a fantastic question here from Kitten Boulder. There's a new rule from the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid where all states will need to build the same set of APIs to give Medicaid patients access to their insurance claims. It's a lot of text here. It's
Mm-hmm.
the first time where like a bunch of states have to build the same thing. Arlemy, you living in London, being a French person, any advice or stories of government collaborating on building APIs?
Um, so yeah, we went through something like that for banking with PSD2. We actually had a chat about that this morning as well. PSD2 is a new regulation, like a EU regulation, I think only, where it's kind of the same thing, but for banking, where they say you need to provide access to the user's data through API. The one thing that is a bit different is that they did not say you all have to have the same design for your API. So all they said is it needs to be available somehow. So banks, some were like not as willing to share the data, so they just made it very hard to access, and some just everyone went their own way, and that created a new business for startups to create a way, like a unified way to access all these banks. So there's like different ones called like Yapili, etc. that do that. Um,
Yuppity?
Yapili,
Yappily.
yeah,
Yappily ever after.
yeah, exactly them. But to go back to your question, uh, government collaborating on building APIs, um, not quite. We have the UK government have their own API office and they do a lot of stuff, but it's within their own. Like I don't think they collaborate with other governments. Um, and just in general in EU, there's a lot of open data that you can access. But once again, it's not collaboration. Like it's a platform where from that platform you'll be able to access different APIs, but they will have different login process. They will have um, different ways or like endpoints, etc. We do
So
have,
Kitten
yeah,
Boulder, one of our colleagues, Kin Lane, or
yeah.
he's the API evangelist. He typically comes on Thursday streams. Probably not here because otherwise he would have immediately swooped in on that. If you tweet at API evangelist, he is very, very involved historically over the last decade, has been working with governments, the US government in particular, but then like UK government, France government, just like governments all over. He's very involved in the government sector. And if there's like, typically he comes at it from, I think, the specification standpoint, coming up with standards and governance around the design and development of APIs, maybe implementation too. Um, I'll post a link to his Twitter. How about?
Yeah, he's recently worked with the Department of Veterans Affairs, right, in the US, and he's helped them as well. Like I think getting started with all their like API process. So yeah, he would be the right person on our side to help you with that. He has the API Evangelist blog as well, where he talks about a lot of that and his work with. Oh, okay, so you know him. That why am I not surprised? Yeah, so he's involved with anything government related. Is usually somewhere around there.
Kitten Boulder, I'm gonna post this in case anybody else is going through some of the same issues. Sounds like you already know Kin, but API evangelist, famous celebrity. in the API space, also mover and a shaker with the government. What else, guys? What do we want to chat about? We should do a stream called like API Talk, where we just like chat informally without showing our screens.
With us, oh, like a panel,
Yeah, like a coffee chat, and like not a
uh,
structured panel.
like a yeah, so like a podcast with video. Yeah, yeah, it works. Who do we get? We get do we? Oh, we could do a raffle for a ticket.
Oh shoot, yeah, we're right at the
No, so not a raffle for swag. A raffle for anyone that wants to participate in these like chats. Then we select randomly, so like everyone has the same chance of joining.
like chat roulette. What if we could do that though? Like the people on the chat, and then we invite them. They submit the raffle, and then we invite them to be a spontaneous last minute guest.
Yeah, that would, um, yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, so we are nearing the top of the hour. We still have time for a few more questions. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we have Thursday. So today's Tuesday.
What are we doing
Thursday,
Thursday?
we have our regular weekly live stream where Arlemy or I will invite a guest or we talk with each other. Like that's how we did this. Ah! Um, so this week we have Box. We will critique their documentation. Cristiano Betta of Box is going to show us about machine learning. So if you have access, say your company uses Box for file upload and you're part of the team and I see Arlemy has uploaded like these files or something, we're going to use machine learning to, I don't know, snoop on what Arlemy's up to, see what kind of images he, transcribe his text and interpret the sentiment of it. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but it's machine learning with Box. Box. Full stop.
Box. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. So do you actually not know, or do you just not want to spoil it?
What I told you is what I know.
Okay, because I'm guessing it's gonna be something around. You feed it like a 5,000 words file, and it's gonna use ML to kind of check what's the topic, or like kind of surface what's being talked about in that file. Same with if you
Oh.
upload like pictures, like you upload 1,000 pictures, and it's gonna tell you, oh, in these 1,000 pictures is like 50 dogs, 1,000 cats, and stuff like
So
that.
it's like a Reddit bot that like links to an article and instead of clicking through to read the article for yourself, the bot just tells you like what it's about.
Yeah, like kind of the main topics, and I guess it can also give you the sentiment, so that it can tell you, oh, this one talks about colors, and it gives a negative sentiment on colors.
Isn't that eroding our ability to think critically for ourselves though?
Yeah, but I'm guessing it's in a business setup, right? Like, so um, your sales team uploads all their sales results from their last quarter, but thanks to that, you can know that all these sales were located in that specific country, or like that's the one that came up most. It kind of does a summary of it. It doesn't.
Yeah. Sometimes people post notes that are like just really discombobulated and hard
Yeah.
to read. So this would probably like boil it down for us.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all guess. I guess we'll see. Uh, we'll see on Thursday.
Okay, it'll be a surprise. So, if there's no more questions, Arlemy, did you have anything else that you wanted to make sure people knew about?
Uh, there's something that I think we will talk about on Thursday that I'm very excited about. That if you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
play with, it's on Canary. So just
In case you missed it. Okay, yeah. We
yeah,
also usually on our Thursday live streams cover like the latest feature releases. So, yeah, tune in on Thursday. And then, Arlemy, when is your next Postman 101 coming up?
it won't be me. It will be one of our colleagues, Somia, who's going to run it, and it's going to be on the 29th of July, I think.
Okay, so we have two ways for you guys to stay in touch, specifically related to Postman stuff. Stop by Thursday if you just want to hack on something and learn something new. But once a month, we have office hours. That's what you're sitting through now. Office hours on Twitch. And then once a month, we have Postman 101 starting, you said, the 20th of next month or this month.
29th.
29th. That's going to be a webinar, very structured, lots of material to cover. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I will see you on Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.